And do we know if there are other members of like zooming in?
Just Suzanne,
Okay,
yeah.
There are also, Madeline, just so you know, 2 members of the public here as well. We have 2 attendees logged in.
oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is a meeting of the Newburyport Affordable Housing Trust at 6:02. And we have I'm the chair and our co-chair is Suzanne Cameron, who is not well tonight, but she's on Zoom. And Caitlin is also on Zoom, so she's taking minutes. And the first item on the agenda, I don't know if people have seen the agenda, but it was posted, and the first item on, here it is right in front of us, sorry, is any public comment? We have 2 members of the public, yes.
I have a comment, but I brought it along as a handout. And for those at,
Walt Thompson.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
Thompson.
I'm Walt Thompson, I'm 100 State Street, Newburyport. Towards allowing tenants in rental apartment buildings a year to find new schools, transportation, and places to live, discussions are ongoing with Councilor Heather Shand's Planning and Development Committee and the volunteers with the AHT. 2 ideas have surfaced, each tenant to receive a check from the building owner for $10,000 to vacate within 1 year. The owner would then factor that cost into the selling price. Or an ordinance requiring a 1-year advance notice to all existing tenants of an intent to sell or part of a rental apartment building, each having 4 or more dwelling units. That sale could be for any reason, not necessarily to convert to condos. So that's my public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I got it, thank you.
You got it?
Yep.
Richard?
Okay, well, thank you for sharing this with us. Andy, do you happen to know if this topic is scheduled for discussion at the Planning and Development Committee?
I have to defer to Councilor Shand, I don't believe it's posted yet for any upcoming meeting date. I have to reach out to her, obviously, after this, as usual, we have to reach out and coordinate as best we can, inform you.
Yeah.
Coordinate for attendance and whatnot.
Okay, thank you, Walt. Any other?
We have one remote and just,
Sorry, we have a hand.
Stephanie Nicovic.
Okay.
Address the trust.
Hi. So it's not really a comment, but somehow with the audio cutting in and out, I missed understanding who from the Affordable Housing Trust is present. So who else is there besides you, Madeline, and Suzanne online?
Okay, why don't we go around the room and have the members of the trust introduce themselves?
Bruce Shapiro.
Elaine Nickerson, Bob Courier.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Just note for the record that Suzanne is with us online.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we had mentioned that,
Yeah,
right?
mentioned her.
Right, I did get that part.
Okay, great. Any other comments from the public? That's our first item on our agenda. Okay, so the second item on our agenda is we are fortunate to have Lori Stewart from the city of Salem speaking with us about the condo conversion ordinance that the city of Salem recently adopted. And is Lori here with us?
She's online.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had posted the ordinance as well as, I believe, some background on all the work that was done in Salem to enable the adoption of this ordinance. So Um, Lori, I'm sorry you weren't here to join us in person, but, can you, just give us an overview of what the, process was for adopting the ordinance, like sort of the background, and then maybe walk us through some of the primary provisions with the ordinance? I don't know if you want a little background from us on the situation here in Newburyport. I'm gonna look to Andy to just
Yeah.
give Lori a little bit of what our status is today.
Yeah, so we have, actually, I can display it on the screen here. I think, Caitlin may already have, shared this, sorry, but we have a general ordinance section. Sorry, I have a couple of things that we're ready to share. So this is our general ordinance section, and it, does, standardize extension of some of the timeframes, and it does give, some mandatory requirements for notice and, assistance to the tenants, but doesn't necessarily, prevent, obviously, the conversions at the end of the day. But it doesn't go as far as the Salem situation, and so we have been discussing in several different forums here, the possibility of updating this ordinance, here in Newburyport, and a similar process, to have similar protections for Newburyport residents, in these similar situations. And so we're looking for insights from you on, obviously, the process. We obviously assume our process might not be as long, hopefully, because we should have followed, from that example, but, and one thing that's unfortunate is just that, this is a one-off, so it's, unfortunately, the authorization was not done statewide, for instance, so each of us, might have to follow as a local community, do the same process again, one way or another, with special legislation, but we're hoping to incorporate the best, of examples elsewhere here, and also to follow the process as efficiently as possible, whether it be the ordinance or the legislative process. So we appreciate, any input on that, so we can tie it in.
And I just was gonna chime in that, not surprisingly, we have here in Newburyport lost a lot of our rental stock to condominium conversion. This is something we've been watching over the years with some level of dismay. Because of the affordable housing crisis statewide, right now, it's really a heightened level of concern. And so we really appreciate you sharing your experience in Salem and hope to learn from it.
Oh,
Do you-
okay. And
Yeah.
are you ready for me now?
Thank you so much.
All right, great. Well, I want to start off by introducing myself. My name is Lori Stewart, and my title is Housing Stability Coordinator for the City of Salem. My position was created so that I could staff the condo conversion ordinance were it to pass. Both Boston, Somerville, and Cambridge all have really well built out offices of housing stability. And I've been working closely with those entities, and we worked very closely with Somerville on crafting our ordinance. My understanding is that you got some of the history of the ordinance.
Yeah,
It started in 2019, before Salem had a housing production plan. And there was an appetite in the community to work on improving our housing policy so that it would do a couple of different things. One, we want to preserve our rental stock. And there was also an appetite for providing more stability to renters in these situations. So back in 2019, the city, this was before my time, but the city had was working on inclusionary zoning and had a big event where many members of the community came. And we all I was at this event before I was hired. We all sat at tables and we discussed different housing strategies, and we noticed that there were a lot of people that were very interested in something to do with condominium conversions. The condo conversion ordinance that we did does both things for us. It helps us preserve our rental stock, specifically in 2 and 3 bedroom buildings. And it also gives us better tenant protections. And I'll go into that later. At some point after this forum, we looked at how many condo conversions were happening in Salem and where they were happening. And we had a person who was on our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Christine Mador, who now works for Mass Housing, and she was a city councilor, so she was very knowledgeable, and she built out the framework of the ordinance that we have now. One of the things that she did that was pivotal was to come up with a chart letting everybody know from 2016 up until 2021 what kinds of units were being converted to condos, where were we losing them. And this gave us a lot of helpful data that we could use to then craft the ordinance. One of the reasons that it was identified early on that the state has a condo conversion ordinance, but that didn't really have any way to enforce that. So with Salem, that's when they decided that they wanted to hire someone to work on housing stability. And if the condo conversion ordinance were passed, then, and it did, I now administer the ordinance. Let's see. The main purposes of
Sorry, could I just
this.
interject?
Sorry.
Apologies, actually, since we're on that point right there, can I ask just for clarity, is your position focused solely on this, or do you also have other duties and responsibilities? Just trying to understand, because then one of the questions here for us obviously would be trying to have similar staffing, and so I'm curious if this is essentially a full demand of your time in this situation.
I don't know yet. Let me tell you, I started in 2023, and for the first I don't know, the first year, we waited on getting our home rule petition back and passed from the state. But during that first year, I needed to do something. And we were also in a transition with our mayor. There was a temporary mayor for the first 6 months that I was there. What I decided to do was model what I wanted to do on the Office of Housing Stability in Somerville. They have many staff, I believe it's over 20, who work with constituents on their housing stability issues. Their program, I would guess, is probably a national model for this type of stuff in municipalities. I do direct one-on-one services. I help people with applying for housing. I help people get rent assistance. I help people. We also have a housing stability drop-in service that predated me, where we have we contract with an attorney who works for the Essex County Bar Association, and she does 3 hours of housing stability drop-in service a week. And we use community development block grant money for that. So I came on after, and I was in addition to that, and because of my background, I have lived experience with housing instability. About 12 years ago, I moved out of public housing, but I had lived in public housing with my son for 15 years. I identify as a person with a disability, and honestly, that was the safest place to be because I was paying 30% of my adjusted gross income for rent. Life circumstances happened and I was able to work myself off of disability, and I decided that I wanted to work in the housing industry. So I started working for Boston Housing, very resident facing jobs. So when this opportunity came for Salem, I really wanted this job because I'm the first one doing what I'm doing for Salem, and I'm hoping to build what we do even further. So to get back to your question, the condo conversion ordinance, once we got the home rule petition, took about 10 months of my time intensively, but I was still able to do other things in addition to trying to get it through the city council. And now, I think it was just yesterday, the OpenGov permitting platform went live and press releases went out and everything is live. I haven't had an applicant yet. So I can't really tell you how much of my time this is going to take up. We did talk with Somerville, and their person is almost entirely focused on condo conversions. But in Somerville, they have a condo conversion board. And in Salem, we decided not to go that route because in Salem, this is a Salem problem, we are having trouble finding enough residents to sit on our boards and commissions. So the thought of creating a new board and then keeping that filled with people that would be good in this situation wasn't something that the mayor wanted to do. And in addition to that, there were some concerns that if we had a condo conversion board, they would be subject to open meeting law like any other meeting. And the mayor and the rest of us, we agreed to, but the mayor thought that it might be difficult for people who are having problems, renters specifically, that if they came into the condo review board and wanted to talk about a personal situation, the mayor felt like that would put everything out in the public. So what we decided to do was go with an administrative process where I do the whole gamut of the permit, but there is an administrative appeal. We have a municipal hearing officer. We haven't gotten to that point yet where an applicant, either the renter or the property owner, decides they want to appeal anything that I've done. That will be there for them in the future.
I just want to thank you because that's actually really helpful context for us to have as well. Not just, we think about the language of ordinances or, statutory authorization, but it's also really helpful to understand how that might programmatically, work in a different, context. So we have our own staffing considerations and bandwidth and coordination type things that we would want to do. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I was going to say the four main points of our condominium conversion ordinance is to decelerate the rate of conversions of naturally affordable rental housing stock. And for us, it's the 2 to 3 unit rentals. We want to minimize residential displacements by strengthening tenants' rights. We wanted to preserve the supply of housing and diversity of housing options in response to some demographic changes, such as smaller and older households. And then the main point was that we want to provide a permitting pathway for the owner of an existing multifamily building to convert rental housing into condominiums or co-ops. So I made a list of I made a list of topics that once the home rule petition passed, and just for the record, it passed after the legislative session was finished. So it was that odd thing that the state legislature was doing where the legislative session was over, but they were still doing work, and we had no idea that we were going to get a positive home rule petition, but we did. And then I had to pivot and build on the structure of the home rule petition. One of the first things that we did was I met with planning and legal, and we came up with a policy decision chart. And it mapped out the different decisions that the mayor needed to make and that we might need to work on. The first one was what were we going to call the ordinance? Prior to my being there, people had talked about calling it the tenant protection ordinance. When I got there, I decided that I proposed to the mayor that we just call it condo conversion ordinance. And then we talked about whether or not we were going to have a condo review board or administrative appeal, which I told you about. We were trying to figure out if we wanted to add an element into the condo conversion ordinance for protective classes. And we did. We decided that if you are disabled, if you are low income, for us, we define that as at or below 80% of AMI. And if you're an older adult, and we decided to go with the age of 60, so if you're 60 or older, you qualify as a protective class in this ordinance, and you get more rights. Some of the rights that renters would get are the opportunity to purchase the unit. One of the main decisions that we had to make was whether or not we wanted the city to get the right of first refusal if the renter decided not to purchase the unit. And we opted to take that out. That seemed fairly controversial. Constituents were heard about it and were letting us know that they felt like that was just too much. So for people that aren't, for renters who aren't in a protective class, they get a notification in their own language. The city supplies these notification templates in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, which are the languages that we target in Salem because we have the most constituents that speak those language. And so you would get a notice if you're a renter outlining all of your rights, and it outlines your right to have 120 days to purchase the unit. It tells you that you have 2 years to stay in the apartment. It tells you that during that time, there can only be minimal rent increases. And also that if you choose to not have work done on your apartment while you're waiting, then the landlord can't come in and start creating a construction zone for 2 years while you wait it out. And let's see. Oh, the relocation payments was something that we had to discuss. We decided when the home rule petition went through, the Affordable Housing Trust had decided on $5,000 as a relocation payment. And since the home rule petition had taken such a long time, we updated it to 6,000 and basically based it off of a lowball amount of rent in Salem at $2,000 a month. So first, last, and security deposit to help the person relocate. For protected classes, they get 180 days to purchase the unit, and the relocation amount goes up to $8,000. And if they don't find a comparable place to live after 2 years, they get an extension of an additional 2 years. The renters are allowed to break the lease, giving the landlord 30 days notice. Let's see what else I have on my list. I've addressed the staffing violations. We needed to figure out what we were going to fine people for violating this ordinance, and we went back and forth between $300 per incident, or what we ended up deciding on was $1,000 per incident. The application fee was another decision that needed to be made. I don't think the home rule petition had an application fee, but the planning department, the legal department, and I decided that we needed an application fee, and we set ours at $600. We looked at different cities, and we also did a very extensive cost justification memo for our presentation for the city council. One of the things that came up is right away when people started hearing that the ordinance had passed the city council, there was a big presence online. I've seen worse, honestly, but there were some people that really felt like it was overreach, and the city had no right to do that. But there were also many people on the other side that understood that displacement is very painful. It's ugly. That, in my presentation to the city council, I was able to draw from my work with individual constituents to help describe the process of housing instability, the stress that it gives to people, the effects on people's health, the fact that relocation means you have to change doctors, schools. We were pretty upfront with the city council that we're seeing a lot of displacement. There are people in Salem that live in what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, and it slowly but surely, those the rents are going up, and we are seeing a lot of displacement. Another thing that I was able to describe in my presentation to the city council was I was seeing typical condo conversion evictions. And let me describe what those look like. I would get a call. It could be as many as 5 people in a building call me in one day saying, I have a new property owner, and I just got a notice that in 30 days they're raising my rent $600. I've actually heard worse, but those types of things where new owner shows up, the rents go up, and most people just can't afford to pay that big of a rent increase. We were seeing a lot of that, and hopefully this ordinance will stop that. One of the main points of the ordinance that we feel is important is that there's a 1-year look back. So if a person comes and applies for a condo permit, they have to testify that either the unit's been vacant, or if they say that it hasn't, they have to supply me with a whole bunch of documentation. Well, not a whole bunch, but enough for me to tell that the people that were renting before this condo application came in were not displaced because of the condo conversion. Because those people, that could be a reason to deny someone a permit. We haven't gotten there yet, but it seems like those people um, might be eligible for the relocation payment. So the first meeting that we had was to discuss the policy points with the mayor. We reworked the ordinance with planning and legal. And then my job was to educate the counselors on the latest version. I had 3 city council meetings and a committee meeting, a whole bunch of meetings with individual counselors, meetings and phone calls. Our condo conversion ordinance is complicated. And even though it had been before the city council to get the vote for a home rule petition, we had a lot of new counselors, and we really needed to educate them about the history of the ordinance and why we made the changes. So it was complicated, but public testimony was mixed. We had like I said, we had a lot of people come out in favor of this that were very much against the pain of displacement. The people really wanted to stabilize things for the renters, but at the last minute, we had some vocal landlords show up, property owners show up, and some of the stuff they were saying was they keep their rents low, and of course the scenario came out in one of the council meetings. What do we do if we have, you know, an older person that's been in the city forever? They bought the property as an investment and now they need to cash out. So there were people saying that it just wasn't fair to them to now have to factor in additional time and relocation payments and all of that. Gratefully, the council agreed with the mayor's position that there are many options for homeowners who want to sell their units as condos. What we were seeing from the community typically is that people don't convert the condos themselves. They sell the property to someone who has the desire to convert to condos. Let's see. I also worked with the Registry of Deeds.
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you there, because that is what we have been seeing here in Newburyport, I think, where multifamily property owners will one way or another sort of empty out their properties and then sell them. And that's when the new owner would seek to do the condo conversion. So, and that's what you're saying you were seeing in Salem as well?
Yes, we were seeing that.
And so this 1 year look back is one way to address that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in fact, we had some conversations with Somerville, and Somerville didn't have a 1 year look back when they first had their ordinance, but they discovered that so many of the condo applications that were coming in had vacancies, were vacant, that they thought it was suspect. So they made an amendment and they added the 1 year look back, and then their next year's statistics were that the new batch of people submitting for condo conversions had people living there. What they described to me was that it was relatively uneventful for everybody. Not very contentious. People seem to understand that this is what they needed to do, and they're doing that.
In Somerville?
In Somerville, yeah. So, um, I worked with the Registry of Deeds. One of our biggest fears was that we wouldn't get cooperation from the Registry of Deeds, that they needed to understand that Salem now has a condo conversion ordinance, and that people who would normally show up to the Registry of Deeds to get a condo doc would now need to have a permit from Salem. We were very happy that the Registry of Deeds worked with us, and they will also be doing a press release to the Essex County Bar Association and the North Shore Association of Realtors. Some of the other work, real quick, is that I had to do was build up a website for build up a page on our Civic Plus for condo conversions, and I based a lot of what I did off of what Boston and Somerville has. And then I worked with the IT department to build out the Open Gov permitting platform. And then press releases, and another way that we're trying to get word out to property owners is an insert in their tax bill. So that's sort of what I have for you. I'm happy to take questions. And
Great, thank you. I think Andy has a question.
Yeah, thank you. If I could, I have a couple, just wanted to state, I'll just say as a local planning director, and knowing that there's an affordable housing crisis across the Commonwealth, not just, Newburyport, Salem, Somerville, anywhere. It's unfortunate, in my view, that every community might have to go in for a one-time special act in order to do this kind of stuff and have to repeat the whole process and so forth. So I do think it'd be worthwhile as we're talking with our housing partners, and trying to figure out with our legislators what we need to do here. I think it's unfortunate to do something that might be relatively straightforward once it's established through a process like this. I think it's really unfortunate that there would be such an uphill battle trying to get to that point. If there was a crisis, in fact, and I don't know why 351 cities and towns might have to have that same debate. So having said that, I had a couple of questions. One was, it was that point that you just made at the end there. I didn't see anything in the act itself that directed the Registry of Deeds to hold up the recording of documents. So it sounds like that's more just the understanding, the quality relationship and understanding of how that process should work to flag something, not necessarily that they were given a directive not to record documents when they come in. Is that? And the other, I just want to confirm, it sounds like that's correct. The other thing I was concerned about was, have there been, or I guess to what degree, have there been arguments with, say, attorneys for, the parties that are being pulled in because of this ordinance, arguing over, because the act itself is shorter, what the local provisions are, and whether or not those are unreasonable or beyond the scope of what the statutory authorization was intended to do. Just wondering how much debate you've had about those things, because that's another type of thing that I could easily see coming up here if we were to do that process. I certainly would want to defend the municipalities' interest in that, but I've seen those types of debates before where it's an argument about whether something is reasonable or within the scope of something or consistent and so forth. So I was just curious, given that the ordinance goes further, of course, like any other local ordinance or regulation, if you could comment on any of that.
I can. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a unanimous vote with the city council. We had 3 councilors who came out against this, representing property owners. And but on the other side of that, we had a couple of city councilors who are also property owners, who are landlords. And for every point that the no side could come up with, the yes side combated that. I think one of the ways that we tried to talk about this is that, yes, property owners have rights. It's their property, but they're renting this property. And the way I see it, it's sort of like consumer protection. There are tenant laws in Massachusetts, and we have strong ones. And we even have a condo conversion ordinance on the state level, but we didn't think it went far enough. So yeah, there were some people that were angry, but there were a lot of people that were happy. And Salem is, I'm not sure how to describe Salem, but we have a strong sense of, we have a lot of renters. One thing I noticed about Newburyport, and I don't know if this is, I just Googled, but it said that you have 70% of your residents are owners. In Salem, it's not, it's much more equal. About half of our constituents and residents in Salem are renters. And we've been hearing about these types of issues for a long time. So I think that led up to the decision to both we used ARPA money to get my position started. And that was one of the uses of the ARPA money. And now I'm in the budget, but it's sort of a long history in Salem.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I wanted to just make sure I understood, and wanted to distinguish the adoption process and sort of politics that can sometimes really, come involved with that versus after the ordinance or regulations adopted and then having a debate with an attorney about the actual, applicability or enforcement, or defensibility of some provisions that are in there and so forth. They're just wondering if there's been arguments about the legal provisions in there, not just about, say, whether it's reasonable at the time of adoption as a policy.
I see. Yeah. We did have those discussions, and I'm not sure how big of a legal staff you have in Newburyport, but we have a city solicitor and assistant solicitor, and the city solicitor gave me a lot of her time. And in addition to our city solicitor, I came to this job with a lot of connections in the housing world, especially around legal issues. I've worked closely with the Mass Law Reform Institute, Greater Boston Legal Services, and I was able to run a number of issues past a gentleman named Mac McCrate, who is retired but is still affiliated with the Greater Boston Legal Services. So we had a lot of legal review, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary yet, but more shall be revealed.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Because I imagine that I can see, with the strength of the real estate market for housing, of course, properties, here in Newburyport, obviously, just having some challenges to those types of things, getting into the weeds of those debates too. And so, just curious how much time and bandwidth, had to be spent on that and how many arguments, there might have been. Obviously, I'd want us to be, strong, whatever we have in the books, but I know that sometimes is a challenge too. And aside from the politics of adopting something, and then you have the debate with an attorney about whether there's some legal language that, is becomes a loophole, so to speak, and whatnot.
Right.
I'd like to give members of the trust an opportunity to ask questions, and also we have two of our city councilors here, Shand and Herman, so, check it out. All I have. Or Lori?
I have thoughts, I don't have questions at this
Okay.
point, but I can make my thoughts known at the appropriate time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in. Were you saying something about, okay. Council?
Just absorbing, I think,
Yeah.
staring at 10 months to get the home rule petition along.
What, this has been, I think, a 6-year process.
6 years, wow.
Yeah.
And with some staffing dedicated to it.
What's interesting here, it sounds like you had the staffing, because it was a recognized need and, and all that, you had the staffing in fact before the ordinance in the books. So,
Yeah.
Right. I think there was a desire to have more work done on housing stability. Housing stability really, the Office of Housing Stability in Somerville and Boston, they've been around, but they really took on important roles during the pandemic. The office in Somerville and Boston, they do things like municipal vouchers for rentals and things like that. They're very complex, the offices and what they do. And I think because Salem is always wanting to be on the cutting edge, there was some desire to have someone there. So combining doing other things with waiting for the home rule petition and then working on the ordinance, seems like that's what the city wanted.
I'll just say, offer one of my thoughts, one of my comments, just based on this issue specifically on the staffing and the things, I think. I used to work for the city of Salem, the planning department there, I understand the level of sophistication the city has. When it comes to public policy, on this level, and of course, Somerville's, Boston, same thing. I think Newburyport, with all due respect, I just think that we're a little limited in our reach to do things like this. In terms of staffing issues. So I think it probably, it rises to the level of other, decision makers in town to maybe do something on a regional level. Looking at something at potentially like a regional housing stability office combined with, say, Salisbury, Amesbury, maybe even West Newbury, and sort of coalescing some resources in the region as opposed to, because I think housing stability is really more, it's not Newburyport specific. I think we're seeing this probably in many, if you were to, have this conversation with, say, the mayor of Amesbury, I'm sure she would have some of the, some similar concerns that we probably are seeing here. That's my thought.
And there are economies of scale, right?
Exactly. That's right.
I just wanted to know for the chair that we do have a hand raised, I know we took.
Oh, okay, yeah, please. I can't see it.
It's Jenny Dunn.
Oh. And, Jenny Donahue, you've raised your hand?
Well done, you on your end.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just, takes me a second. Yeah, I just wanted to, chime in. This is a pretty, in my opinion, very important effort that we should consider, heavily. Because, while Salem is a bigger city and there are more renters, what the problem we have here in Newburyport that I think we're, at least most of you there, are aware of, is that what we do have for renters is like, going extinct. The rental units, anyway, are going, vastly the way of condo conversion, around every corner. So, I think it would behoove the city, because we have such a finite amount of multifamily rentals to begin with. We really need to figure out how to protect them. And if this is a route to protect them, like the endangered species that they are, we really need to try to get past the bigger challenges of staffing and things like that, because that seems to always be the problem. But I always feel that where there's a will, there's a way. And if people want to take this on and make it regional, that's great. But, we can't just say, well, maybe if something happens elsewhere, we'll join in. But, it needs to be something initiated, right? So, something that did catch my ear that was mentioned was Salem likes to sort of be a front runner. Newburyport has that history as well, in terms of like bringing things to the forefront and being, progressive in terms of, like, Massachusetts has always been, doing doing the things that we need, but doing them because they're needed, not because it's what everyone's doing, right? But because it's the right thing to do. So I really appreciate the conversation that occurred here tonight. And I really do hope that the Affordable Housing Trust takes away a lot of this information in a way that, and the planning department, in a way that maybe we can sort of coalesce something into effect. Granted, I'm a lame duck. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I would love to offer getting, working on this now to sponsor, but I heard Councilor Harmon was there, so maybe that's something he can think about as well. It's a need in Newburyport, in my opinion. I think it's a strong need. And like I said, the finite number of rentals that we have should be the reason enough to embark on that effort. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Sure.
So I think to members of the trust, Director Port, Lori Stewart from Salem, just as we think about finite resources, you know, the push-pull here is how do we spend 6 years on a home rule petition and then invest in staff regionally or otherwise to protect condo conversion versus the investment of time in incentivizing rental housing production. You know, like we have 212 units at the Kmart, we've got zoned for MBTA communities, we've got 90 units potentially going with the Minko property on Route 1. You know, are we fighting uphill on a conversion thing where we should just apply our effort toward multifamily zoning in places where it's appropriate? Like, that is something that I think we have, to Councilor Donahue's point, been a leader on, and maybe not a leader, but we haven't been the bad actors in terms of resisting that. So I just wanted to be a commentary on that, as we are part-time counselors, our time is limited, our staff is our staff, and much as I would love to give Andy an army, I think I probably would lose the election if I tried to do that. So I'm just curious your thoughts on where to apply our effort for where the juice is most worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I mean, my thought would be, to your point, Counselor, I think it is, you know, creation of more deed restricted rental units, like the ones that we're gonna have at Kmart, and we've already created in the 40R district, and other even market rate rentals that are available. I don't think it makes this effort not worth it, so to speak. I think, you know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and, you know, press forward with housing production goals and creation of affordable housing, while also trying to pursue something like this. But again, I think this requires a wider buy-in, you know, obviously because of the time and dedication to it, the uniqueness of it, given that, you know, this isn't something that, you know, obviously only a few communities we've really discussed have really taken this on in a really serious way. So are we gonna be one of those communities? We certainly can. It's not a wrong thing to do. It's just, but it's a resource allocation, time, effort, political will, and doing it across potentially several city council cycles. So you can have different voices in the room at any given time, depending on where you are in the debate. So
I think also, just in response to your question, I mean, part of what this is about is the tenant protection, the existing occupants of properties. That's what they were originally gonna call the ordinance, tenant protection ordinance. And, you know, one of the great things about what they'll be able to accomplish in Salem, hopefully, is preserving properties that are already in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, they're part of the fabric of the community. And it's different from, you know, the new developments that you mentioned. I mean, I think we need to try to do both. I absolutely recognize this is a tall order, but there's a lot of special qualities to what we could accomplish with this kind of effort.
I was at a forum last night for the Democratic City Committee talking about housing, and I referenced the word "for" because I do think we have some of that embedded rental and multifamily within what sort of, I think you drive through, it looks like a lot of single family homes. So I think, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna echo the same. It's kind of two different animals. The people who are living in a unit that's been their home for a long time, as our friend from Salem was talking about, the fact of having to move when you're not expecting to, is just when you get down to the trees or the people, it's can be devastating. So I'd love to have us be able to do it, but I also agree, and I don't mean a but, no, it's a but. It's a big job.
Realistic expectations.
It's a lot bigger than you think. So the idea of doing it with a group of towns, at first I thought like North Shore Consortium, but that's like Peabody, that's a bunch of other big towns, so it'll be more like regional.
And I don't know that the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission might be a vehicle of some sort.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to get in there with that, and I've already said a lot, but the other thing I'll just say is just like a lot of the other housing related public policy initiatives that have come forward recently that have been impactful or hope to be impactful. Those are top down, those are state level, you know, MBTA communities, the recent accessory dwelling unit, legislation. So like, I look at this almost as kind of like a state issue. The state might need to bulk up its own statewide legislation with respect to tenant protection rights, because it's just not amplified. So it's, cause it's like, even if we do something, even if we fast forward now, it's like, tenants' rights are completely different once you go over the border in Salisbury and Amesbury, and it's, it's not equitable. It's not equitably driven when you have communities that have enough resources or enough will or impetus to do something, and then a mile away, a different community does it completely different. It doesn't, I don't know, I think that's the problem.
I think, the comment I have is that the people who live in this town that are now elderly, and they're living in, they downsized, or they're sitting in a home that's vacant and they're the only ones in it. They're the people that changed this city. This city was a complete dump when I moved here 50 years ago. And the people that helped bring it back, the people that fought to bring it back, are now my age. They're 80 some odd years old, and they should not be forced to be moved out of the town that they rebuilt. And we've got to come up with some type of ordinance. It can be brief, or it can be just something. It says, okay, hold it here, folks. We've got an ability to slow you down a little bit and to give them a chance to hang in there. Otherwise, it's just like that building at 105 State Street. It kicked all 14 people, gone, bye, poof. Sure, get out of Dodge. So they're gone. And that's not nice. And I don't think that it's nice to do that. I think we need to do something. That's all. Go ahead.
Andy,
I just want to say, I don't think anybody in this room would disagree that we should, be great to have this tool, be able to do something. I don't think that's the debate necessarily, but I do want to agree with something that Andrew Shapiro had suggested, just that, again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if this is really a statewide issue of affordable housing, and you can have a spectrum debate about how much, latitude, and whether it's, MBTA communities or some other, have that whole debate, fine. But I don't think it's very efficient. It's very disproportionate to me for every community to have to do this in sort of a one-off style. So I don't know, I know, unfortunately I haven't had time the last, number of days to, I did have a quick exchange with Christine Medora about this, but I don't know, in terms of dialogue with the housing, MHP and others, how much dialogue there might be already about trying to have something statewide to cover this, because I think both staffing wise, administratively, the legislative process, just in, general, there are some things that are just better done through that level, and I think Andrew's right about that this would be better done, authorized and set up at a higher level. Partly because of that, if you're a giant city like Boston or a larger community, like Somerville, maybe you've got some in-house resources to do some of this stuff. But I think in a lot of cases that may not be the case, and certainly having to wait 6 years is not a very efficient way of getting to more affordable housing. So, so I do think that would be beneficial to try to do it, in that level. Unfortunately, as opposed to thinking that we're just gonna do it locally with an ordinance and.
so more research to be done, sounds like, with MHP and other, organizations and municipalities.
Well,
Council Bruce and Senator Warren. Rep Shannon, start getting the folks who represent, I know there's some, who's the other representative in Amesbury?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, engage with Senator Tar and Rep Shannon and, Rep, who's the woman in Amesbury as well? I can't remember, it's not Kristen.
Adrian Ramos.
Ramos.
Yeah.
That's the other Amesbury, and at least you have those three in the first Essex. And that covers those three towns. I mean, I think when folks leave Newburyport, they go to Salisbury and they go to Amesbury. I think those are the core three right there. I mean, at least that starts with the four we have in the state delegation that, they're local.
I mean, I think that, I kind of mentioned something similar to this when we met last, and we discussed this to some degree. There might need to be a higher level, because I don't think this is we're the Affordable Housing Trust. We advocate for affordable housing, and certainly we would advocate for tenants' rights and protection and preservation of rental units from condo conversion. That's a concern of ours, but I don't think it would emanate from this body to say, hey, we gotta do this. You know what I mean? I think it's a larger discussion amongst other public policy officials in town, the mayor, the city council, us involved, and then others, to decide whether or not we want to approach this in a way that's, our own grassroots effort, whether it's a regional thing or our own ordinance similar to what Salem did, or if we just want to play an advocacy role to do something to encourage the state to take it on. So I think it's like whatever it is, a working group, an ad hoc group. I know those are all loaded terms and I don't want to get in trouble, but just, maybe get a few people around the room to decide if this is something that the city truly wants to take on and how do we want to approach it.
Right. Yes, I am trying to wind this conversation down and move on with the agenda and thank Lori, but go ahead.
I just had one question on Mr. Griffith's comment. We have 79 rental apartment buildings. We're not making this a big deal. We're trying to hold on to 79 rental apartment buildings. It seems like with a couple sentences of an ordinance, we could affect that. I'm just trying to encapsulate it into 79, not the whole.
But it sounds like we still need
the same process as.
right, we would still need
Yeah.
a authority to be able to do that.
Oh, you.
So it's almost better to do the whole thing. If we're gonna go take the effort to get a home rule approval to move forward on this type of thing, we should have something that broadly covers, anything like this. It's my view.
I just for the record, just to be clear, because our office is sometimes burdened, and I know Professor Hubbard did reference that earlier. I would love to help out with this. I'm more than happy to work with, with our reps and so forth. The last special access fee that I worked on was related to the Sucker One from the NRA dissolution. I'm more than happy to work on this, but I would prefer to make sure that we're sort of on the same page about what the parameters are, so we're not having an endless discussion, having to circle back and, because the legislature will need some kind of idea of what our parameters are gonna be, if it's not just the language here, and we're gonna have to work out our own ordinance and provisions, whatever that may be. And also, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I'll just leave it there, but my biggest concern is just making sure everybody's on the same page about this and that the sort of support will be there, the bandwidth at the end of the day. Because if we're gonna spend time doing this, I also, well, that's the other point. My other point is I would prefer for it to be an authorization that's wider than maybe just Newburyport, so other communities are not also suffering the same burden locally, especially if they're a smaller community. I'm happy to do all this over again as well. It would make a lot more sense to me if it was a special authorization for our reps are able to help and reach out with others, that it could make it a wider authorization perhaps than just doing this just for Newburyport.
I'll let you move on with your agenda, but this has been very grateful for the conversation and for Lori Stewart for being here. A lot of good ideas that I think we can, carry forward and see if we can get a to be named group together that could try to work on it. So thank you.
Great, and thank you so much for coming. And Lori, thank you so much for all the information you shared with us. It was really helpful, interesting, lots of food for thought. I think it was Suzanne Cameron who introduced you to us, so I want to thank Suzanne for that. And you'll probably be hearing from us again for some additional.
Well, thank you for having me. And, I know I speak for the other people in Salem that worked on this. If there's anything we can do to be helpful, please count on us.
Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to leave. Have a good evening.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So,
It was very informative.
yeah. Great. So
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
Suzanne, for making that connection for us. So next item on the agenda is the Woodman Way unit. This is a deed restricted affordable unit.
Bye.
Good night, thank you. That is up for resale. And I'm not as eloquent in talking about this. I usually look to Karen Weiner, because she has helped facilitate this to some degree.
Hey, Caitlin's here, I don't know if she.
Oh, is Caitlin here? Okay, great. Caitlin, do you want to describe the process and any action that we have to take?
Yes, sure. This is something that you've seen, many times before. So like Madeline was saying, there's a resale at 6 Woodman Way, unit 121, in the deed rider. It gives the city, right of first refusal. And typically, you would support, the mayor, waiving that right of first refusal for the city to purchase the unit. So it would just be a vote to support, the mayor, waiving that right of first refusal, as typical, that you typically do.
I'm just, before we make a motion, it's my understanding that they have a 90-day period to try to market the unit to an income eligible buyer. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they're gonna hold a lottery. And they typically have multiple eligible purchasers, lined up, for
So
this.
Chapa does that for them, or,
They do. They're the
Okay.
monitoring agent for these units.
great,
And who, I'm sorry for my ignorance, who will be taking on the responsibility for marketing the unit?
That is Chapa,
That's
but we also do that, here locally. We send out
Right.
notices and we have our, eligible buyers waiting list, as well.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that we make whatever effort we can not to lose this unit and to market it as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, I was just gonna ask, is there a risk to not waiving yet? And do they need us to waive before they start marketing it?
No, it doesn't sound like.
No, they've already begun marketing that.
Okay, they already started.
yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is, like, what if?
Hold on a little bit before.
Well, I was gonna say, what if the 90-day period goes, and I don't know how likely this is, it might be totally unlikely, but like, what if the 90-day period expires and they don't find an income eligible buyer? And then, okay, now it's a market rate unit, so then maybe it comes back to us and we can make a play to, I'm not to say that we'd have the resources to do it, maybe it doesn't make any sense anyway, I'm just throwing it out there, that, is it? You know, in terms of the order of operations here, should we hold off on waiving the right? I'm asking.
Taylor, do we have any idea what, indication like how soon we would be able to get an answer as to whether or not they've got anybody, right? That's the.
they have till
I
November.
can find that out. And typically there's, a dozen or so eligible, buyers for this. That's why they always have the lottery and people are lined up, and numbered 1, 2, 3, if one falls through. But I can find out for, the trust, how many people they have in line for this unit, if that'd be helpful.
Okay, thank you, because I guess in essence, we're talking about like the potential, let's say, for a housing trust meeting before that deadline. Where the trust could, still have that option available, right? So.
Right, I mean, I would think too, it would just be a matter of us doing it before, I would assume, the closing.
Yeah.
So as long as we can do it before they close, although I'm sure the buyer wouldn't be comfortable. Moving towards the closing if they didn't know if we were gonna waive or not,
Well, I
but
just wonder how often does it fall through? I mean, it's hard to buy a house. I don't wanna make it harder for an eligible buyer to buy.
You've had us in Newburyport, and I'm trying to
But I'm
remember.
not sure it was at Woodland Way, I think it might have been.
It wasn't, it wouldn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's at the Foundry
Yeah.
property, I think, and they have a different deed restriction, I think, I don't know if that played into it.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Is this a good way to lose affordable housing?
what does that
What do you
mean?
mean?
Because I'm just an observer, but it looks like if you offer something and it's not taken, then it goes to market rate and you've lost affordable housing.
That's what we're
I
talking.
don't know that it happens that often. There have been rare instances that we've seen it. I don't think it happens very frequently. But on the flip side, I'm not gonna advocate for the real estate community so much, but I just, from the flip side, the argument there would be, well, if nobody who's eligible to buy it, you can't prevent somebody from getting some sort of sale, to bring on that property. So that's the release valve, so to speak, at the end of the day, I think that's, was worked out.
But doesn't it take more than 90 days to get from the time you see, oh, I want that, till you get closing?
I think they're already
This is just
putting it,
marketing,
and
this is just about marketing period, the period in
Right.
which it has to be. Right.
So affordable housing would be lost.
No, you can
If there is not a tenant that is
The
eligible.
marketing period ends November.
yeah, so you have 90 days to find someone who makes an offer essentially.
Right,
And
that's
that's
not a
not-
closing date per se.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, well, you're shaking your head, but that's a long time.
Yeah, that is a
That's an
long time.
extremely long time in real estate, I mean, and
I just hate to see affordable housing. go.
I.
That's our whole point.
I think we share that concern, I mean, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, what I'm saying is there any? value to holding off on waiving. Because if in the scenario that you're contemplating, which I was contemplating initially too, for some reason they're not able to sell it to an income eligible buyer, we still have the right retained as the city or the trust to potentially purchase that property and keep it on the rolls.
Right.
Throwing it out.
Yeah, I think that personally, I think that's fine to postpone this, but I think it would be great if Caitlin could ask Chapa if they have any concerns. We don't want to do anything that would potentially put a cloud over the prospective sale to an eligible buyer. And we certainly can plan, well, it says the marketing period ends in late November. I was gonna say but that's not that far away, so we would wanna make sure that we
They've already
meet.
started.
Right, I know, but
Yeah.
we wanna make sure that we meet,
Yep,
and address the matter, and just get back to us, Caitlin, and let us know if Japa has any concerns
Sorry,
about
I
us
have one more
delaying this, yeah.
Question, I'm sorry, I'm maybe totally in. Is it our right of first refusal, or are we recommending the right be waived to the city council / mayor? Because that's another
I
step.
think it's the mayor.
The city's right of first.
Right.
But are we the one, are we in an advisory role here, or are we actually initiating
Looking to Caitlin.
are we executing the waiver?
Caitlin, do you have an answer? for
Yes,
Jim?
it's an advisory role, and so the mayor would be the one waiving the right of first refusal.
Yep.
And then also I just looked for the last lottery, just to give you some context. The last lottery we had, there was 11 eligible purchasers for a unit, and so they had 11 people lined up, should one fall through. So it's highly likely they will find someone. But like you said, we can hold off on this action right now.
Yeah, the only reason I asked about the advisory thing is because that's just another step. We're not the end of the road.
Right.
We're, you know what I'm saying?
Right, well, and the important part about that, and we've got you brought that, the important part about that is you're talking about appropriation of funds, right? So you're talking about city council meetings, referrals to committee, whatever that process is, where those funds come from. All that process and timeline needs to be taken into account for the mayor to be able to actually proceed and, commit to, something like that, so.
Okay.
Where the housing trust could, if they had funds could appropriate, but that's different.
So Caitlin, you'll get back to us about whether or not there's any concern that Chapa has with us delaying this vote, and we'll be sure to act on it in a timely fashion.
Caitlin, who is the brokerage firm that's handling the sale?
Excuse me?
Who is the brokerage firm handling the sale to the owner?
I'm not sure. I can find that out as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. So the next item on the agenda is, I'm looking at this. Updates.
first member, right?
Thank you, yeah, Bob. You're on.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the senior affordability task force and about your thoughts on a letter to the ZBA regarding Plaza Landing?
Right, I went to the ZBA hearing on May 24th. Or June something, whatever it was. And it was very obvious to me that the chairman of the ZBA would like letters from public supporting affordable housing. And I think that the way my discussion with using general terms, the attorney for them, Lisa Reed, felt that the 80% was a crazy number. And she said, do what you can do. And I think if the Affordable Housing Trust sends a letter to the zoning board of appeals on this subject that says, look, we understand that the agreement is 80% of AMI, but we would like them to do an adjustment of 1/3, 30%, 1/3, 60%, and 1/3, 80%, and see if they will do that.
When you say she thinks it's crazy, she would be
She would be,
agreeable to what you just said. You think?
she indicated that she would be
Agreeable to lower it, kind of.
low.
Oh, good.
And I found out that they have a lot
She's not the owner.
Chapman has a lot of money. And what they've offered to do is to do other things to help the city make that project work. And so I see no reason why they shouldn't at least address it. And
Sorry.
if they do,
Sorry, just because I'm a little bit confused as well, just having seen the development agreement and the references in there, of course, the typical 40B process, I'm just curious. You're saying that you talked to Lisa Mead, who's representing the applicant here,
right.
and there was willingness and interest to modify or reduce the increase the depth of affordability.
Said, that's a crazy price, 80% of 89.
Yes, but was there an agreement or willingness, because she's a representative for the applicant, was she saying that she was amenable to bringing or dealing or bringing with a change of that nature before the ZBA?
She said, we're receiving, the city is receiving letters, the ZBA, it's in their hands now. The ZBA would then receive our letter and say back to them, to the town attorney, would you be willing to make it 30, a third?
Right, no, and reason I asked that question is I'm aware that the letter from the housing trust, for instance, they could go to the zoning board of appeals, but the zoning board of appeals does not have any unilateral ability to mandate a deeper affordability, even though I would love that to be the case, that's not something they have the authority to do. So, given that the conversation again ultimately goes back to Lisa Mead and the applicant.
Right.
As to whether or not they were willing to modify that, I was confused a moment ago, because it sounded like you said the applicant's representative Lisa would be willing to.
Maybe the letter should go to Lisa Mead or the applicant, not the ZBA.
I thought the ZBA was issuing that permit.
Yes, but remember, the comprehensive permit process does not authorize the ZBA to mandate the level of affordability than what is proposed here.
They're just reacting to what's been proposed in
Okay,
the plan.
fine, that's the purpose of the letter is to get them to try to think about it. Because their next phase is when the next supermarket leaves, is to just do the same thing on that side of that building.
Right.
And I would like to have some attitude thing. Instead of, I'd rather have us negotiate that percentage rather than somebody else say, oh yeah, do 20, 80%.
Yeah, again, just to be clear, I think to me, it seems pretty obvious that if there's not the ability of the applicant to propose this level of affordability and not to have to go any further is already authorized under state statutes and regulations, period. And I have not seen any indication that the terms that are outlined at that level, maybe a development agreement, for instance, that's consistent with what they presented to the state, what they presented to the ZBA. I don't see any indication that the applicant is interested in changing those parameters, so, well, the trust could send a letter to the ZBA, and they certainly are interested in hearing from boards and committees and other agencies in the city. And I do think that's been, I'd love to see the same thing you want, the deeper affordability. I think it's worth noting and recognizing the degree to which the board, where you're addressing potential comments to, has any ability to mandate or call for that. They, I think anybody in the room, if they had some latitude, would say, like, can you make it feel affordable if we hadn't, but it's quite obvious to the board, I think already, the perfect board, that they know that that's not something they can mandate or call for. So if my understanding is they're probably focused on other aspects of the project because they cannot, for instance, do that, so I just,
And Andy, this was a local initiative project, right? So it's all that, so
Oh, it's all that.
so the mayor negotiated this with
I know.
the developer. So the way I look at it is, it would be the mayor having a conversation, for instance, with the development team to potentially amend that agreement
Okay,
to
that
say,
sounds fine.
that's what I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying?
I'll
The
stick to this.
ZBA is just saying, they're looking at it from like, they're kind of playing sort of like a subdued planning board role.
Exactly.
Where they're just they're looking at it from they're reviewing traffic, they're reviewing, so they're not saying, oh, we're reviewing the level of affordability of the
Right.
project.
right, for the purposes of their permit process, this project already meets the mandatory minimum threshold
Correct.
for that
I
permit.
understand.
So that's where the degree to which they can do anything about it, is just worth recognizing.
Okay, that ends that subject. The next thing.
Well, I think that there's still the opportunity for the trust to submit a letter of support. I personally feel it's a great opportunity to increase our rental housing stock and at the same time have 25% of the units restricted to 80% AMI, which is, I think that's a plus. we could, if the trust felt like it was something we wanted to express. Mention that we feel that the 80% AMI is high for Newburyport and that we, want to just express our sentiment that we would prefer to see a deeper level of affordability.
I agree.
And the mayor's been successful doing that in other projects.
And I think we need to keep, reiterating that sentiment, and any opportunity we have. This is an opportunity. It's not necessarily gonna have the desired effect of what Bob is asking for, but.
So to that end, can I just ask Andy, where, cause I apologize, I've been a little bit, I haven't paid as close of attention to the ZBA process, so where are they? So like, where are we far off from a decision? Where
Between
are we?
now and mid-December, basically, a decision being issued by the board, when we're not generically, unless the timeframes are extended, statutory timeframes. They're doing the process right now, they're right now focused on going in the September 23rd meeting and 30th meeting. Traffic, civil, stormwater issues, and then some other aspects of the project, but that's their timeline, December is.
So if we, cause we're gonna have to vote on a letter, so I assume we'll meet in October? So is that good timing to have a letter drafted by the next meeting?
I certainly think that's.
Vote
good
to
timing.
approve that and then submit it like sometime, beginning mid-October?
It makes sense to me.
Is that good timing wise?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanna make sure that makes
So
sense.
that could give folks, I don't know how you wanna handle it.
Cause I had talked to Madeline a little bit about it, that I'm willing to draft something initially that we can.
Right.
We work together after, I throw a draft out there and then, we can add any additional commentary, and I'm happy to add the color that Bob just offered, which is just. That, we would be supportive of a lower threshold of affordability, in the project, even though we understand that it may not be what the ZBA is currently considering,
Right.
And if that starts a conversation, great,
Yeah.
then, you never know, so.
Well, the reason that's important is because their next phase is that next big blocky building, and I want that to be all 30 and 60%.
You mean where Shaw's is?
Shaw's is going
You know that, or you think that?
there. Have you ever taken a look at the?
No, I'm just asking if you know that. I mean, we all thought that Harris was gonna be president, so let's just, do you know that?
If you look at the amount of people that are in there, and the amount of business that they do, there's no reason in the world, other than the fact they have an existing lease.
Okay,
I mean, leases.
so we think that.
Yeah, but then Trader Joe's would.
They're going.
Problem solved, don't worry.
Whole Foods. Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up, Bob.
The other thing is, since you all know, I'm a member of the Senior Affordable.
Yes.
Task Force.
Right.
We had our first meeting September 4th. And it was basically all the city departments that met to try to discuss, to review existing policies, ID barriers and groups, and develop recommendations that help eliminate the stressful condition for seniors in housing. And that's what they talked about. So, my personal belief is we should do three things: to come up with a source of revenue that helps the seniors get credit, just like Cambridge does. Cambridge gives every homeowner that's elderly under some conditions $400,000 credit on their assessed value.
Mhm.
So that reduces their taxes.
Taxes, yeah.
3,700. So the second thing is, we have that pool money. Second is to finance the ambulance, which almost pays for itself. So that the elderly don't have to wait for an ambulance. So in the last 8 weeks, have had to call for an ambulance 3 times.
Mhm.
And once I've had to wait for 28 minutes. Now, what happens if I had a heart attack? I wouldn't be here. So we need to have our own ambulance. So I come up with a way to finance this and to source that money for the mayor to do it. The third thing we need to do is to come up with a source of funds for the Affordable Housing Trust. And that is the Airbnbs need to pay a tax on their units to go into affordable housing that we will manage, we can maintain. Then we come up with a unit for buying something like that, if we so choose, if there wasn't 13 people in choice, we could buy it. We have the money.
Well, and by the way, and I don't wanna.
Go ahead.
I don't wanna steal your thunder, so I think those are all great things. You know, I think there's opportunity, like, it's a lot of money, but you know, every now and then you'll see like a. You know, like a market rate, like even like a single family home,
Right.
go on the market. That sometimes it's like a more modestly sized home and something needs a lot of renovations and upgrades, sometimes it's in the range of like $600,000. That's a lot of money, and I'm not saying we're gonna have that very often, but every now and then. You know, is there ability for the trust to
If we put a
sort of
range,
purchase a unit?
Before it gets smacked and then made into.
Right, and then you turn around and you get like a nonprofit involved to maybe do some renovations and hopefully rent it out or resell it for, you know, reasonable rates.
it's just a choice.
Yeah, so it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Just on the ambulance thing, I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah.
Something to consider though, when the total cost is
It's about-
staffing and training,
Staffing and training, they've
and
already trained everybody.
obviously buying an ambulance or
Right.
two, whatever,
Right.
however many. And there's building issues there too, because you need to actually house the ambulance, because we don't have fire stations that can house ambulances right now.
Sure they do,
No,
we have two of them.
no, they
Yeah.
just build one, but they're built for the current configuration, which is
Right.
just emergency
But then
response.
what then, there's an engine in there and there's a spare engine. in there. It's just a spare,
Oh, okay,
it's not man.
so we could actually do that.
Yeah, so you put an ambulance downtown to start. It costs about $1 million for the manpower and about 550 to 600,000 for the ambulance. Which they can do by lease purchasing instead of going out and spending a bond for it.
Yeah,
And lease purchases take the sting out of it, make it work.
I would suggest on the Airbnb, I would suggest that you maybe contact Mass Housing Partnership Fund. To find out other municipalities that do that.
Yeah.
I know that Provincetown does it.
Yeah.
They have a very strong
Gloucester.
market,
Gloucester
but,
does it.
okay, so I
Oh,
know that Gloucester does it. So, yeah, I mean, looking at what other municipalities are doing, for
But the
example.
thing is, the key is in Christian Sear was there, at the meeting he ran. And he understands that a split tax rate is coming. And we're gonna have to have a split tax rate in this town.
Between commercial and
Yeah.
residential.
Currently, it's 16%. of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you just change that, you would make it 32% of the revenue instead of 16%. So that'll be a big difference. And he understands that's coming. So it's a matter of putting these points together for that mayor to do it, create the pool of money. From that pool, we can give them all $300,000, whatever, credit. We can.
And it's gonna apply for the tax abatement or just if
No,
you're over
it's gonna be-
60?
It's gonna be recommended by
Mhm.
Christian Sear, the mayor, to the city council. We got a brand new city council,
Okay,
so that's what it.
thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob, for calling.
Yeah.
There's another meeting coming up in another week, and
Wow.
I will let you know.
Awesome. Okay, moving through the agenda. Updates from co-chairs or planning department. I don't have any updates.
I mean, I'm sure we probably will say something to Suzanne. I just wanted to say thank you to Suzanne.
Okay, yeah, we haven't made an announcement
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
I unfortunately just wanted to know, Mayor unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, but he did wanna, obviously thanks Suzanne, so.
okay, yeah, so that should be my update.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Long day for me. That's my excuse. Suzanne has announced her resignation from the trust. She's been on the trust, I don't know, 10 years, almost since its inception. And it's a big loss for us, but she's done her duty and more and contributed in so many ways. And I also can't help but think that she'll be rooting for us. Suzanne, I think you're still on. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi everybody. Sorry, I was diagnosed with the flu today, so it's been a rough couple of days. I missed last night and I'm missing tonight, and so it makes me sad because it's it is my last meeting as an official trust member. But I just want to say thank you to everyone that, certainly the planning staff, Kaylin and Andy and Madeline, you've been a great co-chair, and the rest of the trust has been amazing. I am so proud to say that I've worked with this body for so many years. I think it's between 10 and 15 years now. It is my heart. Housing is my heart. I do it for a living every day, all day. And to leave this body is a real loss. But it is time for me to take a little break and focus on some other things going on in our lives. So I will be not far away. I will most likely be sitting in the public domain chairs from now on, but certainly I'm happy to help with any special projects or anything that you have coming up. And I'm not going to be
Yeah.
far away, so thank you
We're
for
gonna take
everything.
you up on that.
Like I said, the mayor is the planning director, I think we the planning staff, we appreciate obviously the time. It's time to say, it's noticeable to me when board members have been on for a very long time, they put that amount of time doing it, irrespective of the details even, so appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Okay, so I think just because the time is getting a little late, I mean, Andy, if you have any other thing, okay. So we have approval of minutes. I don't know, we went through this last time that we met and we were able to approve a couple of them based on who was present. I don't have them in front of me.
We should be able to approve all of them since we have a
Quorum.
4 out of 5 quorum. All of us should have. At least 3 of us should have been at every one of these.
Yeah, I don't think I've missed any of them.
I think I missed maybe one.
I missed July 31st.
I have a motion to approve the other ones and then put that in motion.
I'm just gonna approve, unless this is over the top, I'm a motion to approve all the minutes as presented on the agenda.
I second it.
All in favor or
Aye.
any discussion? Okay.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Done.
done, thank you, Drew. Next meeting date.
Caitlin, did you have any initial thinking about that, or I got the calendar up, obviously?
Yeah, do you mind
but,
pulling that calendar up, please? Thank you.
Yeah,
Look at me, put my sunglasses on, Sue.
this is October, so
Mhm.
you can't see the top, but that's October.
Is there any chance we could do a Thursday night instead of a Wednesday night? or
Yeah, that would be good for me.
Just want to note for our purposes anyway, Kate and I have to worry about, please keep an eye on the conference for community preservation and historical,
Yeah,
depending on how many get, if it was time.
well, if it has to be a Wednesday, that's fine.
It feels like it's too soon, or is that?
I'll be away the 8th. Other than that,
Let's, 22nd is okay with me.
it's fine with me.
Okay,
I think we have to check out. our road,
that
but-
sounds good to me. Yep.
That works for me too.
Right,
My only question is that still okay for the letter?
well,
If we vote on the letter at that time and then, or is that getting late in that?
I mean, the CBA is still gonna have the entirety of November, I'm not sort of meeting every next month, of course, but they'll still have that month, and there'll definitely be a meeting in that month, I imagine there might be more than one, so. I definitely think that's reasonable, I wouldn't wait any longer than that, to be
No.
clear, but I do
Okay.
think that that's doable, yeah.
I think we can.
Is October 22nd the date for the debate with Jim McCauley at the Knox School?
Oh, is that right?
That was just announced today.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't wanna draw the crowds from there to here, you know, cause.
A lot of people.
I was unfair here, right? I know, that's what I'm thinking, you know, it's just.
I'm okay with
That's good.
I'm still okay with October 22nd.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know the timing of that, but it is that day, I guess, according to the poll, so.
Yeah, I mean, technically, that's not
It's not an election or a ballot question.
no, yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's also not a city function.
Right, right.
You know what I mean, like,
Exactly.
it's,
I guess it's more of a question to the board members feel like they, need.
I don't care.
I'm okay with the 22nd.
So, Kayla, we'll do, as long as we confirm a room, we should be good to go. Wait a second.
Okay, sounds good.
All right,
Thank you, Caitlin.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
motion to adjourn, do we need that? You just. You're being.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Suzanne.